Secondary weapons. As small as they may be, they are no less important to your loadout than a primary weapon is. It's like what Master Yoda once said.
Size matters not.
Today, we're ranking every single secondary weapon in Helldivers 2. This is a part 2 to my last video where I went over every primary weapon in Helldivers 2, so check that out if you haven't already. Once again, these are my opinions. This tier list is not purely objective at all. If you disagree, you can check out the description for a link to the template I made on tiermaker.com. That way you can make your own tier list, and maybe even make your own video about it. With all of that out of the way, let's get on to what you came here for, which is ranking every single secondary weapon in Helldivers 2. Starting off with the pistols, our first weapon is the P2 Peacemaker, which is starting gear for all Helldivers. The SEAF standard pistol, offering a high fire rate, generous capacity, and fast reloading. Not much needs to be said about the Peacemaker. It's a very standard sidearm with balanced stats. Nothing wrong with it, and nothing exceptional about it. Normally, I would probably want to put it in B tier because it's such a basic, average weapon, but I think when I compare it with the other sidearms I'm going to be ranking, I think I need to put it in C tier because I think there are lots of better weapons than it, and some that are almost just pure upgrades, really. Next up is the P19 Redeemer from the Helldivers Mobilize Warbond, a fully automatic pistol with an extremely high fire rate, allowing for efficient crowd control. The Redeemer is your only option for a fully automatic pistol, and it fills that role well. It deals comparable damage to most submachine guns, and is pretty easy to control considering the high fire rate. The only thing it compromises when compared to a submachine gun is the magazine size, which is very forgivable considering it's a secondary weapon. So I think I'm going to put the Redeemer in, I think it's B tier. I think this is the average sidearm. You know, it deals good damage, but it's not really exceptional in any ways, apart from the fact that it's fully automatic. But I do think it's better than the Peacemaker, so I'm putting it in B tier. Next up is the P113 Verdict from the Polar Patriots Warbond. The gas-operated, semi-automatic P113 chambers the 14mm Rapid Deliberation, the largest centerfire cartridge of any magazine-fed pistol. The Verdict is a heavier hitting sidearm than the previous two. It has much greater damage per round and a decent enough fire rate for a pistol of that caliber, and it is a consistent way to deal damage with medium armor penetration, and it's been my most used secondary weapon ever since it came out. So Verdict, for me, I think it's A tier. I consider it to be an upgrade over these two, but not like overpowered in any way. Next up is the P4 Senator from the Steeled Veterans Warbond, a high damage revolver which can be reloaded with single rounds, a heavy-hitting and reliable sidearm. The Senator is without a doubt the most stylish secondary weapon. Whip it out with a little flourish and proceed to deal immense damage towards any enemy in the game. It has the highest damage out of any pistol and is the only non-stratagem weapon with heavy armor penetration. You have to be a true gunslinger to make full use of this weapon though. With only 6 rounds in the cylinder, every shot has to count in the heat of battle. But if you're good enough to wield it, it is unmatched as a secondary damage dealer. So, if that wasn't obvious enough for me talking about it, this thing is an S tier in my book. I think this thing is not only super fun, but very effective in the right hands. Now we're moving on to the melee weapons category, starting off with the CQC-19 Stun Lance from the Urban Legends Warbond. A melee weapon tipped with electrified prongs that temporarily stun targets. Can be wielded one-handed. The Stun Lance is one of the 2 melee weapons currently in the game. It deals acceptable damage and of course stuns enemies, making it an effective weapon for personal defense. The best part about these weapons is that you obviously don't need to reload an electrified stick. So you can use it to your heart's content, you know? You can also wield it one-handed, meaning you can pair it with a shield for a fun, gladiator-style melee build. So for me, I think the Stun Lance is a B tier. I think that it's pretty middle of the road, especially since we don't have any other melee weapons to sort of compare it with. If we had, like, more melee weapons in the game, I might rank it differently, but I think that it sits at B tier. Unless you're using that, the passive that lets you do more melee damage, then it might be an easy A tier, or even an S tier if you really love it that much. Next up is the CQC-30 Stun Baton, which is only available in the Superstore. A lightweight melee weapon that temporarily stuns enemies. The Stun Baton has many of the same properties as the Stun Lance, but trades melee range for attack speed. There's not much else to really say about it that I can't say about the stun lance, and which one you pick will essentially come down to personal preference. So I'm putting the stun baton also in B tier, below these two. I prefer the stun lance a little bit, but there's not that much of a difference between the two, really, at the end of the day. Now we're moving on to the special category, starting off with the P11 stim pistol from the Chemical Agents Warbond. Fires a ballistic dart at near supersonic speeds, allowing the user to stim allies from a distance. Might sting. I would say that the stim pistol is the most unique weapon in the game, because it's not really a weapon at all, but instead a tool for healing allies. While it's a novel concept, the main problem is that it is absurdly niche. On higher difficulties, you will struggle to find a moment where you can reliably heal your allies, and on lower difficulties, you won't be needing this thing at all. And the healing itself isn't even as good as a normal stim. They really need to add the ability to self-heal with this thing. As it stands, it's not worth losing an entire weapon slot for a chance to give your allies mediocre healing. Yeah, this thing's a D tier. I really don't like it. Finding an opportunity to actually heal your teammates with it is so rare, and there's really not a reason to use it. If you could self-heal with it, I would bump it up a little bit, and if it could go through friendly shields, then I would also bump it up a little bit, because God forbid you have a friendly running a personal shield generator on your team. Next up is the SG-22 Bushwhacker from the Viper Commandos Warbond. A triple-barreled, break-action, sawed-off shotgun. Switch firing modes to fire all 3 barrels at once. The Bushwhacker is a super fun secondary, acting as a perfect panic button for when you're a bit too close for comfort with an enemy of freedom. The description sums it up perfectly. All I can really say is that having a shotgun on your hip is a great backup from when your primary is out of ammo, so I'm going to be putting it in A tier, because goddamn, it is just so fun. I love it a lot. Who doesn't want a shotgun as a secondary weapon? That's just super useful. Next up is the P72 Crisper from the Freedom's Flame Warbond. A compact, handgun-style flamethrower, able to project a jet of fire over short distances. If you understand flamethrowers, then you understand the Crisper. It's just a shorter range flamethrower, really. It brings a lot of utility to the secondary slot, giving you a flamethrower in your back pocket for swift area denial whenever and wherever you want it, without sacrificing one of your more important weapon slots, of course. Not much else to say about it, really. I mean, it's a secondary flamethrower, like, what do you want from me? I'd say the Crisper is an easy A tier for me. Would I put it above the Bushwhacker? Perhaps. I think they're mostly interchangeable. It really depends what you prefer. Next up is the GP31 Grenade Pistol from the Democratic Detonation Warbond. A pistol that fires grenades. Must be reloaded between shots. That's a very brief and concise description, I'd say. The grenade pistol is one of the most useful weapons you can pick for your loadout. Having an easy method to destroy enemy structures is extremely valuable, and this weapon lets you have that right in your secondary slot. It has a good amount of ammo, allowing you to take out a number of enemy structures before needing to restock. It deals decent damage too, allowing you to take out groups of lightly armored enemies with ease. I mean, we all knew it was coming. It's an S tier. It's the best secondary in the game, in my opinion. Next up is the Laz-7 Dagger from the Cutting Edge Warbond. A laser pistol that fires a continuous beam. Does not require ammo, but can overheat and need to change batteries. The dagger is a surprisingly efficient laser weapon. Although it can't fire for long before overheating, it disperses heat very quickly, so regularly swapping to it is actually a pretty good idea for some extra damage. I could imagine that running this with the sickle or the scythe in your primary slot would be very fun. You could swap whenever you're close to overheating with one weapon, and allow it to cool off, while you use your other heat-based weapon. So, dagger I'd say is also A tier. Would I put it above the rest? Probably not. Not in my opinion. And finally, the Plaz 15 Loyalist from the Truth Enforcers Warbond. A plasma pistol that charges each shot until the trigger is released. Plasma projectiles explode on impact. The Loyalist, or as I like to call it, the Pocket Purifier, is an odd choice for a sidearm in my opinion. When I think of secondary weapons, I think of something fast, something reliable that I can whip out on a moment's notice and save my skin with, or something like the grenade pistol that has a great deal of utility. But the Loyalist is most efficient when charged up, just like the Purifier is, which isn't really a problem on its own, but I don't find it to be a reliable backup weapon, a reliable secondary weapon, like the Verdict, the Redeemer, or the Dagger before it. While I'm sure many others love it, I just don't use it too much because it doesn't meet my personal needs for a secondary weapon. So I'm going to be putting it in C tier. So here's the final ranking. Maybe the Loyalist could go above the Peacemaker, but in my opinion, these are mostly interchangeable. You could put this above, though. I'm just going to say it again. This is my opinion. This is an opinionated tier list. This is Grand Moff Togen's secondary tier list. This is not fact. Alright, this is just how I feel about the weapons. I just want to make that clear because my last video, that might not have been clear enough, because some people thought I was purely objective about it. No, this is mostly subjective. This is how I feel about them. And if you disagree, please, go to the description and make your own tier list out of the template I made on tiermaker.com, and make your own video out of it even. Comment if you make a video about it, because I read all of my comments, and I would be glad to talk about why we enjoy different weapons. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like. That helps out the channel quite a bit. If you want to see more Helldivers videos, or just videos on co-op games in general, then please subscribe. Go ahead and comment down below about your favorite secondaries in Helldivers 2. That's all I have for today. Make sure you stay tuned for my next video, where we're covering all the grenades in Helldivers 2. And, well, that's it. This is the SES Prophet of Dawn signing off.